Psychological development is a psychological maturity of a person. There can be someone at high level of consciousness, at highest levels of consciousness, even at full consciousness, there can be someone who has arrived there, but they might be psychologically immature. And that is usually where the problems arise. Opening consciousness is like in the famous depiction, like you walk through a labyrinth, and opening consciousness is knowing the road exactly. At this point, turn left, at that point, turn right. And that's how you will arrive to the destination, to the full consciousness. So arriving to a destination doesn't mean that all the problems are resolved, that all emotional problems are resolved, all psychological issues are resolved, and that all traumas are healed. So therefore, the level of consciousness of a person does not mean that they have actually worked through all the issues. Yeah, this is already a big clarification for many people. So I have witnessed people who are at lower levels of consciousness, but they're very mature beings. They're very mature beings. They have a mature psychology. They have a mature way of dealing with emotions. They're grounded and mature beings. And I have seen many people at higher levels of consciousness, even though they are, in non-duality, awareness, and even full consciousness, but they're immature. They're either immature in their own personality, so they might do some, seemingly, unwise things, and so there can be a personality immaturity, just like, if somebody would open up to full consciousness being a teenage, for example. It's possible, it's possible. So they would still be teenage, they're not going to be right away as mature as a person who is 40, 50 years old. They would still be teenagers. They would still do their thing, go maybe explore some fun time and make mistakes in life and this and that, and being a teenager, that's what it is. And even if you're at full consciousness, that's what it is. So personality growth is important. Yeah, so that has its own path. It has its own track. Emotional maturity has its own path, its own growth. Psychological maturity has its own path and growth. And that is what is called an integrated personality. If we put together emotional, psychological, mental is actually psychological and emotional. So psychological, in a higher sense, what I mean by that is actually the psyche of a person, their emotional mental states. That's what I mean in a most broadest term, psychological maturity. As well as their personal development, personality maturity. So this maturity happens in two ways. One, which is most common, that a person, is maturing by time, by growing up, by becoming more mature over time, learning the lessons of life, and sometimes it happens that this maturity comes, we can say, from a bit from the previous lifetimes, we could say, or to be more precise, that someone is a more mature soul. Yeah, someone is a more mature soul. So some people, even as children, I've seen some kids who are pretty mature children. The way they speak is like an adult. So there are some children who are older souls, and they came already with a more mature beingness. So these are more rare examples. These are much more rare examples that somebody as an older soul would bring their maturity along the way. So that's a lot more rare. It's so this is more distinct, or more rare or special in some way. But let's say it's just more rare. Now, most commonly, the maturity is something that is developed. So consciousness opening is one thing, and now let's separate that. Personality, psychological maturity is another thing. They're not the same. They're not the same. This is very, very important to know. Psychological maturity is very dependent on upbringing of a person, especially childhood time. And it is also very, very dependent on traumatic past experiences. And if someone has some, pretty big traumatic experiences, they will come up. As one is opening to higher levels of consciousness, they will come up. These past traumas will come up, and they have to be healed. And it's not going to be quick and easy thing to do. Healing traumas is not a quick and not an easy thing to do. It takes years, not weeks. Just let's meditate and heal this emotion, and I heal my trauma. No, it takes years, and it might seem that I have healed this. Okay, now I'm ready to move on, but then wait a couple of weeks or months, something will trigger you, and still there. It's still there, it still comes up. So trauma healing is a very complex thing, and it takes years. I've seen many people at higher levels of consciousness who are still healing traumatic experiences. Even people at full consciousness would still, some people would still be healing past, childhood things. Now you will say, so where does enlightenment come in, and what does it really mean? Full consciousness is enlightenment, and it's not an integrated enlightenment. An integrated enlightenment or integrated full consciousness is when you open up to full consciousness, but then you do your work. You continue doing your work. You opened up to full consciousness, that's amazing. But then you continue doing your work. You continue integrating your psychology into consciousness, your emotions into consciousness, your patterns of behavior into consciousness, your qualities are integrating. And as a general good rule of thumb, we could say that it's good to spend, let's say, 7 years in full consciousness, that you could say, okay, now probably I am, integrated, we can say, to a certain degree in full consciousness. So that is what is called an integrated enlightenment. And of course, it takes time, and that's why in Zen, they always say, just you have an awakening, amazing, but spend some couple of years to know what it really is, just to polish up on it. So therefore, with the, we can say, freshly baked, consciousness awakenings, many things can still happen. Many things, can come out. Many troubles can be caused, and various instabilities may occur. Relationship issues can still be present. Friendship issues can still be present. Traumas can still act out. And that's where a lot of confusion comes in, that people, they open up and everybody now assumes, this person is now at this highest level of consciousness, and immediately everybody has expectations that they will be a saint, angelic, and and a totally integrated, wise being. Isn't it? Yeah. So I know that everybody immediately places these expectations on anyone who says, okay, now I'm in non-duality, or I'm a non-duality teacher, or I'm, now I talk about presence, and I'm teacher of presence, and everybody immediately assumes that they already have, all the wisdom in the world. They're already, completely healed beings and integrated and so on. So no, that takes time. That takes time. Now, some teachers, now opening up a bit more, some teachers who are at higher LOCs, let's say a teacher who would be in the consciousness of void, great void, and even if they did spend some years, 10, 15, 20 years, but because they are in the consciousness of this great void, or on the scale of 1000 at 800s, even if they have really integrated there, they would still develop a certain way of expressing themselves, which might be still very mystical or confusing. Yes. And there are some very well-known teachers. Maybe some of you already know what I'm talking about, but I don't want to name any names, today. There are some teachers who are very well known in society, or they passed away already, and their whole legacy was to make people confused and to keep their minds open. And so one moment they're talking about peace and balance and stability, and another moment they're saying completely something totally opposite. And it's beautiful. It's it's hard to grasp it, and then that's their message. You can't grasp it, but it causes a lot of instabilities, let's put it this way. It causes a lot of instabilities and a lot of, ways to shake up the mind, which is good, which is good. But generally somebody at, 1000 or full consciousness after some, good integration period would be more consistent and more able to help someone in a more integrated way. Yeah, so therefore, even integration depends at specific LOC, we can say. So it's pretty complex as you're getting to understand. So integration takes time, and even where one is integrated, it still brings a lot of flavors. It brings a lot of flavors because somebody, I know some lesser known teachers who are in non-dual consciousness, and they develop a very strong, I know one teacher is very integrated, but he developed a very strong flavor of negation, the usual common non-dual negation. And, while this person himself is very integrated, I know actually a few teachers in UK and in Europe and some other places, while they've been doing this for 10, 20 years or more, pretty integrated, so to speak, but their negation is big, and it sometimes causes some big challenges to people's psychology and mentality, this negational attitude. So that's that. Human psyche is very, very complicated. Yeah, we have a little question. Can you give an example of this negational attitude? Well, someone who is, let's say, at non-dual consciousness, which is not full consciousness, and on the scale of 600s, would negate reality and the world and life and the body in an unhealthy way. They would negate it in a such way that your family life is not important, only that is important, and this is not real, and this is an illusion, and these sort of negations are not integrated negations. Comparing to someone who is at full consciousness, well, let's say an integrated teacher, Nisargadatta Maharaj, his negation of the world is on a completely different level, and he negates the mind which causes the concepts which cause one being delusional. He negates that, and it's a much more it's a much more integrated negation that actually supports a long-term growth and opening and integration, rather than disturbs one's life and family life and work life, or many different ways, in unhealthy ways. So that's a big difference, somebody negating at that level, which is disturbing, and someone negating at the integrated full consciousness level, which is supportive and more integrated and more healthy. So that's an example. Yes, and I've heard and witnessed, and some of my students came to me after meeting some of these harsh negating teachers. In Australia as well, there is another teacher, and it's just simply unhealthy psychology. That's what happens. And then we need to do more extra work to integrate them in a more healthy way. So there's, we can say, a compassionate negation, and there is a harsh kind of harsh negation, which is unhealthy. Some people get attracted to these harsh negators, but why? Why would you get attracted to someone who is harsh on you? And you say, oh, that's healthy for me, but that's abusive and victimhood behavior. So it means that you might be holding some childhood traumas and past experiences where you meet a teacher who is also hasn't completed their own abusive and victimizing behaviors. And that's why I say, oh, that's a teacher. Oh, that's a good teacher for me. No, you're resonating at the level of abuse, at the level of psychological abusiveness. And one might perceive that that's healthy for me. And it may be maybe a component is healthy at that time, but that component in a larger sense is only, let's say, 10% healthy and 90% not healthy. So I've seen that quite a few times, actually. So so if a teacher is, publicly displaying their harshness and like a clear psychological abuse, as they're teaching, in public, as a teaching, and let's say bringing somebody up and then shouting at them and, negating over their whole life. There's actually teachers like that. Yes, there are. And you just need to use your sanity, your clear sanity to recognize that something wrong is going on here. And then maybe you should leave that kind of space. But somebody who is used to being abused might want to stay because they feel that something is resonating, but because they are still holding the abusiveness or victimization within them. I hope you understand better now. So essentially, psychological maturity has a lot to do with the psychological abusiveness or victimization. There's another famous term, the shadow side. That shadow side is just simply subconscious, unconscious patterns that are not seen or avoided or not met. So it's better to call it what it actually is than to invent another word to be spooky about it. No, it's just subconscious, unconscious patterns, behaviors that have not been met or are avoided or are not wanted to be seen. So that's what it is. And every person has them. And therefore, now, what do I mean by maturity? What do I mean by maturity? Maturity, I mean that meeting, how one is meeting those patterns. Everybody has them. Everybody has, some hidden subconscious, unconscious corners, places, patterns that you kind of don't want to see because it's a big trouble there in one way or another. Everybody has them. But what is maturity? Maturity is how you meet them. It is how you meet them. And this is the development. It's For some people, it's very natural. Again, it's very natural for them to be more internal. So if one is more naturally internal, they're kind of dealing with those challenges more internally. Some people are more external in their personality, and they speak first and think second. Yeah. That happens a lot. Or they say, I have to express it so that I can see how things, manifest, so that later I can realize what mistakes I made by expressing them. Is that wise? Not really. When you think about it, do I have to bring out my my distortions and to manifest them so that I can see the manifestation and start reflecting on it? That's not the wisest way of doing it. So you might need to find a better way of doing it rather than already manifesting an issue and then analyzing. That's not the wise way. A wiser way, for someone who is more external is to say, to think, how can I, express this, challenge or behavior, but in a way that it doesn't affect anybody else, in a way that it doesn't manifest as a manifestation and it doesn't affect anybody. So that's the question you should raise. If you're externalized person, you're active, and your energetic type maybe is to project and externalize. So you should raise yourself a question: what is the best way to express it? Because that's how my energy system works. What is the best way to express it, but so that it doesn't affect anybody? It doesn't cause any trouble to anyone. Now that is the question. And yes, you can do that. You can do that. You can, for example, be in your own space, in your own room, and just express it, and see yourself talking about it. See yourself talking about it. Yeah, you can talk to yourself as a self-therapy technique, and just express your problems aloud, but in your own room, when there's not your partner next to you or other people around you, where it's gonna cause trouble for sure. So that's just one example of a one technique. Or you can even, if you want, put a camera and see yourself how you're expressing these things. Of course, you might not be so courageous, or think, you might get shy or feel some guilt about it. But there are many ways, and how you can express things but not affect anybody else and don't cause any trouble to anybody else. So I see most problems arise with people who are, on one hand, who are internalized people. So they keep things and try to process, but then they can't, and then they explode. And that's not good either, because they don't know how to deal with that, and they should seek some counseling and some help, to help them out with those challenges. And then I see other type of people who are expressive, and they just go out and blurb anything, whatever is on their minds, and cause trouble to everybody. So these people are big troublemakers. They cause a lot of troubles to everybody because they just want to express themselves all the time, and lots of issues are created like that for everybody else. So the mature way is a rule number one: don't cause trouble to others. Does that sound good? Yeah, when you have your own issues, don't cause trouble to others. with your own issues. So a mature person would find a way how to work through the issues. Let's say in a way that it doesn't cause trouble to anybody else. So, either there are things that you can do yourself. You can meditate, you can read, you can heal, and there are many things that you need help with. So book a session, book a counseling, go and meet go for a psychotherapy session, and perhaps, and speak to someone, or meet with a friend and say, can you help me, because I have this issue and I'd like to discuss with you. So that's a healthy way, because you make an intention to seek for help, and that intention to seek for help is creating a secure environment for healing. But if you meet a friend and you just blurb out, all the troubles and you blame them for it, you're losing your friend, basically. That's what's going on. You're starting to lose your friend. So a mature person, everybody has issues, but a psychological maturity, personality maturity is how you deal with it. That's where the maturity is. And the rule number one is do not cause trouble for others. So find a way, just consider, think about it. How can I deal with my problems that will not cause trouble for others? So there are things that you can do, but there's always a time when you need to have some help, and better ask for help. Book a session. I am here to help. And if we meet with an intention, to help and to solve it, then it's a secure environment. It's a protected space. Your psychological state is secured. Your traumas are safe. Your issues are safe, because this is our intention. But if you meet a friend and you just unload it on them and then blame them because they don't understand you, that is a very foolish and unwise way. It's not helping for your relationship. It's not helping you to heal. And you just caused another problem that you will have to deal with later, or lose a friend. So that's what it means, maturity. It is how you deal with issues. How you deal with issues. And number one rule is do not cause harm to others. Do not cause harm to others. This is very, very important. And there are people at higher levels of LOC who cause problems to others. There are people who at lower levels of consciousness who don't cause problems to others. And therefore LOC is not a measurement of ultimately, who one is, or how mature they are. There are many good teachers at lower LOCs. There are some wonderful teachers. And there's Wayne Dyer. He's a lovely teacher, for example. And Eckhart Tolle has a beautiful way of teaching, and there are many Buddhist texts. There are so many books and teachers, even at lower LOCs, who are just, integrated and wise and helpful. And there are quite many new teachers, or even some, 20, 30 year teaching teachers who are psychologically damaging with their negations and so on. Yeah, so LOC is not a single measurement, and psychological maturity is all about how you deal with things, because everybody has issues. Everybody needs to work on these subconscious, unconscious patterns and things. And it's hard. It is, let's be honest. It's a tough job. And when you open up higher consciousness, there is more light shining through. So everything is being kind of illuminated and brought forward more intensely. But it doesn't mean that you're done. In a way that you're healed from all of that. That takes time. Yeah. So let's now another sign of psychological maturity. So one thing was do not cause harm to others. Find a way to heal that doesn't cause trouble to others. Another sign of maturity is saying sorry. Some basic things, just saying sorry. I behaved inappropriately. I got carried away with this pattern, or I did it again, and then you seek for reconciliation. You just say, yeah, I did this again, and then just saying sorry, or can you forgive me, or and so on. So that's another sign of maturity. Another sign of maturity is owning your issues. Owning your issues. Putting your issues on other people is easier. It's your fault, and you did it, or it's easier. But owning your issues is a sign of maturity. So you say, I know that I can be angry, and that is my issue. I own it. This is my thing that I need to work on. If sometimes I'm angry and I do this and this, please forgive me, and please know that I don't really mean it. And if I say that I really mean it, it doesn't mean that I really mean it, because I'm speaking from anger. Because sometimes you speak from anger and then you say, I mean it, and but you really don't, in that moment, it's still anger speaking. So when you are in your clear-mindedness, in your psychological stability, that's where it's good to explain to your friend or partner that even if I say that I mean it, I don't really, because it would be anger talking through me, for example. Yeah, it's a good way to preserve a relationship. It's a good way to preserve a friendship. Now, what is important really in life? Is it important to be right? Is it important to prove that I'm right? Does that make the world a better place? Does that improve relationships? Whenever you prove to somebody that you are right, you are making the other feel not right. Do you get that? Yeah, whenever you prove that I was right and this and that, you just made somebody else in a more victimhood state. So proving that I'm right, this is right, this and it's just another trouble. That's what it is. You don't have to prove anybody that you're right. It's much better to say that I was wrong. That's a better way to preserve relationship and friendship. So wisdom and maturity is in how to keep a friendship, how to cultivate a friendship, how to cultivate the friendship, the relationship, how to sustain the friendship and relationship. So that is a way of a mature person, a mature being. So if one has an attitude of preservation, cultivation, making peace and harmonizing the relationship. And even if something goes wrong, admitting it and saying, yeah, I own it, this is my issue, okay, I admit it. Nobody's perfect, that's fine. And it's, again, sign of maturity. Of course, it's very hard to speak to somebody if they project their issues onto you, and then it's hard to own it because it's not yours. So but then it gets complicated. But then you need to shift the conversation, from owning this and this into more of a, okay, so let's meet in the middle. Let's make peace, and let's find a way how to preserve our friendship, because that's what's most important. Friendship is most important, relationship is most important, connection is most important. So you can see how there are certain ways how maturity happens, how one is growing. Maybe just one last aspect for today is that people like to find flaws and to look for faults, especially at certain spiritual development phase. Oh, I see the truth. It's my truth. It's this is the truth. And this is a very common thing that happens in the mid levels of consciousness, that one has come to their kind of a spiritual domain, and now they start owning their truth, and fighting for their truth, and proving things their truth, proving others their truths. And what a trouble that person becomes. Literally, I've seen it. It happened in our community so many times, and it happens everywhere, because many people have these tendencies of proving their truths. And then simply I ask a question: what's important to you now? Do you want to continue proving your truths and finding faults in others, or do you want to continue growing on your journey and becoming a mature being and actually not harming anybody? So a truth is relative. There is no absolute truth apart this present moment. And if a person comes up with their truths and tries to prove and show the faults and this and that, in the present moment of absolute now, what is really happening now? One is arrogant, first of all. One becomes arrogant with their truth. He becomes abusive with their truth in the real present moment, and starts to cause trouble. So there is no truth as truth apart from what is really going on now. What is really going on now, what is now, that is the truth. What is happening now, not what concepts we are upholding, not what ideas we're sticking to, and not what we're trying to prove anybody. Yeah, there are some controversial teachers who are all about their truths. They become very famous. They're on YouTube, have like 100,000, 500,000 followers, just blurping out their truths. And what a trouble they are. Big trouble for many people, and many people resonate with that. More trouble for everybody. You should ask, did it make any of their friendships better? Did it make their family life better? Does anybody like them? Those people who fight for their truths. Then people start not liking those kind of people anymore, because they have issues with their truths. So that again is a very big immaturity. But of course, that person who is acting out, they won't see it. They won't see it because their priority is no longer harmony. Their priority is trouble or proving whatever they want to prove to somebody else. Yeah, so it's complicated, and that's why rule number one is do not harm others. Do not harm others. Express yourself in a way that it doesn't cause trouble to others. And in this context, we're talking. Of course, if we talk about social injustices, with COVID and this and that, and then, then it's okay to be angry because your human rights are being, violated. That's a different case. It's a different topic. But in this context of psychological, personality development, it has to do of a harmonious growth, harmonious healing, respecting others, and healing in a harmonious way, acknowledging that everybody has challenges and issues. Everybody has certain subconscious, unconscious patterns that sometimes come out, but respecting a friendship, I would say that's much a higher priority. Respecting relationship is a higher priority, and your ultimate journey to become fully conscious being, integrated being, and to heal in a mature way. That's where you will be happy all along on your path, and your ego will be under control, and you will employ wisdom rather than impulses, and your relationships will be preserved, your friendships will be preserved, and your journey will be a beautiful journey, and everybody will respect that no matter how many issues you had and you have dealt with, you dealt with them well. You dealt with them well, with respect for others, with kindness, with care, with harmony, and not causing more issues with your issues. I think it just makes sense, isn't it? It just makes sense. So don't get illusioned by spiritual truths. Always have a common sense. What is it really happening now? What are you really doing now? Even if you're sitting, with your friend or your mother or your father, if you're trying to prove them, that this spirituality is now the new truth, a new way, you're like a Muslim preaching to a Christian. Hold on for a second with your spirituality. Just, meet your father, mother, friend as they are. Meet them where they are. Meet together. Express yourself in a constructive, mutually respected way. Don't become a Muslim or Christian preaching to Muslim, or so on. Don't cause more trouble. So do it in a wise way. So these rules apply to any situation, whether you're spiritual or not, whether you are at LOC inner light or love or unity or presence or non-duality or even full consciousness. And if you are, at higher LOC, don't get arrogant and assume that, oh, now I am in non-duality, so I know better, because you are not in non-duality. And here you go, you just became a trouble to someone. Yeah, so your non-duality became your ego non-duality, trouble to someone. So, the present moment is the only place where we meet others, where we express ourselves. And there are certain parameters, let's put it this way. Does it cause trouble to someone or not? Is it mutually respected? Or is it arrogant and with all sorts of ideologies and concepts and harmful expressions? Yeah, so it's all about how you do it. It's all about how you do it. That's what it is about. So this is a very, very important topic, and today was more like a broad overview, and I feel that we need to dedicate more and more time for this, because on the consciousness opening level, we are very good. It's happening for everybody very well. Everybody is opening very easily, smoothly, quickly up. But on a personal development and psychological maturity level, yes, guys, everyone needs to do more work and a bit in a better way. Yeah, so that's why we need to dedicate more time for these discussions. And, these topics, we will create a whole new section on the website and probably a whole new playlist on YouTube. And maybe in around once a month or once every 6 weeks or so, we will dedicate a meeting for the topic of psychological maturity. And we will discuss many more aspects, many more ways, many more examples, and bring a lot more clarity of what is really this journey and growth and consciousness and psychology and all of it. What is the best way or best practices? There's no one best way. There are many good practices and some standards, we can say, or some guidelines that we should implement and practice and follow to make your journey and everybody's journey as beautiful, as harmonious, as sustainable, and most importantly, that we build beautiful friendships, that we build beautiful relationships, and we make our world, our society better in a mature way. Because all of you, you have friends, you have families, you have colleagues at work, and therefore this topic is important. And you are growing, you are changing, and you are affecting other people, and therefore this maturity is very important. And that's how our environment is growing, and our extended relationships are growing. So in a big summary, friendships, relationships, society, let's do it in a beautiful way, in a mature way, and let's educate ourselves. Let's grow in this together in a most harmonious way. Yeah, so consciousness opening is something that we are good at, and psychological maturity is the hard work that does take time. Yes. So now we can dedicate some time for meditation, and yes, and this meditation intention is to ground and balance, to ground and balance, so that we can increase our capacity, to deal with these challenges. Yeah, so this meditation will be for basically increasing our capacity to uphold and deal with challenges. And that's something that everybody needs to work on. So let's take a few moments to slow down. A few moments to slow down and to center yourself. To center yourself into your breath, into the vertical dimension, vertical line. So slowing down and then centering yourself, bringing yourself back to the center, bringing your attention back to the center. Now you can collect your attention from wherever it is and bring it back to the center, back to yourself. Bringing all your attention, collecting it together back to yourself, back to the center. And just take a few moments just to sit in this centered place. To sit and also to ground a bit into the earth. Just to ground with your feet. Feel the stability, maybe your chair, the stability of the chair, of the couch, the stability of the floor. Just to ground and feel stable. You can feel that there is more space around the chair, around the couch, around your body. There is more available space around. And in this available space, you will recognize that perhaps there is a challenging emotion in you, a challenging energy in you. And it's like a bubble or a vortex or like a river, whichever is easier to associate with. So this challenging feeling, emotion, energy is like a bubble or a vortex or a river. Now the goal is not to get wet or not to get into the bubble or not to get wet in the river, not to get lost in it. The goal is not to get lost in it, to be with it, but not to be in it, not to get lost in it, not to subscribe fully to the story, not to subscribe to the story or to the situation, to the related situation. So the goal is to acknowledge that there is a challenging emotion, energy, a challenging, something that maybe you can't define what it is. Or maybe it's even a physical pain somewhere in the belly or somewhere else. And just give it some time. Just give it some time. Know that there is more space available around. And that is how you increase your emotional capacity. You increase your feeling capacity. And you increase your psychological capacity. So you are with it, but not in it. And then you can acknowledge to yourself that I am the space for this energy. I am the space for this pressure or pain, for this feeling. I'm not the feeling itself. I'm the space for the feeling. It's like I'm not the cloud. I am the sky for the cloud. So that you don't get lost in it. So that you don't get dragged into it. And this is how your capacity is growing. Your capacity to be with challenging feelings is growing. Your capacity to be with very uncomfortable energies is growing. It's like a lotus flower has its roots in the mud. The lotus flower springs from the mud. Its roots are in the soil, in the mud. But then it springs at the top into, wow, this beautiful flower, a lotus flower at the top. So it's the same way that you are practicing your capacity, emotional capacity. There can be strong, challenging feelings, emotion, energy. But your lotus flower is growing. And now you're handling this challenging things in a secure, space, in a healing space that actually makes a difference, that actually helps you to grow, where a transformation is actually happening. And if you feel an urge to move into action, if you feel an urge to express, to make an action, to do something about it, you can also contemplate, what is it really about? What is it really about? What is this need about? So one may say that I feel a need of freedom. I need freedom of expression. But actually what happens is that moving away from a healing space into externalization is actually moving away from your energetic system, from your nadis, from your kundalini energy, from your nadis, and moving from your power into a lesser expression, into a manifestation, into a verbal manifestation, into a manifestation of activity. So you're moving from the power of your own energy system, where you can actually make a change in your Kundalini chakra nadi system. You're moving away from the power of that into a manifested energy pattern. So you would be losing your power, and you're gonna have to come back again to your own Kundalini, to your own chakras, and to rebalance that again next time. So that's where a real yogi, now this is a bit more advanced, that's where a real yogi can sit as a lightning. That's where a real yogi can sit while the whole galaxy is moving inside them. That's where a real yogi can swallow a black hole, so to speak. So a real yogi recognizes a mature being recognizes that any energy inside them is inside them. Any energy that is out of control is out of control and needs to be brought back into harmony. That a transcendence happens not being in the energy, not being lost in it, in emotion or feeling or thought or energy. That I am the space for this energy. I am the consciousness in which this energy is present. I'm not in it. I don't need to be lost in it. I don't need to be conditioned by it. So a real yogi is staying in their power, and from that place is dealing with any challenge. And sometimes if something more challenging comes out that one cannot stay in their power, one recognizes that, okay, that temporarily I came out of my power into a more conditioned energy, but now I can come back again to sit down, slow down, center, come back to my own power and continue working on it. I stepped out of my home and now I can come back to my home and continue working on it. It's like you are at the top of the mountain, you suddenly roll down the hill, but then you come back at the top of the mountain, you stay sitting there. Rolling down is easy. It just takes a second to roll down. Coming back to your power, back to your center, back to your clear-mindedness, that takes practice again and again and again. And with practice, you become better at it. So for those who are ready, you can slowly start coming back. So it is a lot about staying in your center, staying in your power. It is easy, it is very easy to be subjugated. Yes, it is very easy to be subjugated. That's the easy part, to roll down the hill, to be subjugated, to be lost in it, to express my feelings, my anger, and this and that. That's the very easy thing to do. Everybody can do it. But to be centered, to be grounded, to employ wisdom, maturity, now that takes some practice. That does take some practice. And there are constantly new situations that may arise. and you work through one thing, and then you say, oh, that was a big one, but then another big thing comes up, and then it's not about expecting, when all those challenges will finish. Yeah, I know some people, so there's a next one and a next one, and then they started to give up. No, it's not about expecting when challenges will finish. It's about expecting when your capacity to handle anything will grow. That's what you should expect. When your capacity to handle energies will grow, emotions and feelings, that's where you should put your expectation. And that's where your power is, in the right expectation. When my capacity will grow, what can I do to grow my capacity? Expecting that all the challenges will go away, this expectation makes you disempowered. It takes your attention in a wrong place and it makes you disempowered. It's called a fool's hope. But placing your expectation in yourself, that how can I increase my capacity to handle these energies? That's a wise way. That's a sign of maturity. Waiting for something to finish, it's not a sign of maturity. It's a sign of weakness. It's a sign of weakness. Yeah, so the mind many times leans on the weakness. The mind many times leans on the weakness. And by doing so, it takes your power away from you. So every moment you can observe where your attention is leaning onto, where your focus is leaning onto. If it's leaning onto an expectation where you have no power, it's a wrong place. It's not going to help you. If it's leaning onto yourself and on that which you can do, now that is the right place. So if your attention is leaning on that which you cannot do, you're wasting your time. And if you're putting your attention on that which you can do, that is wonderful. Yes, and there are many tips of how to bring more power into the present situation, back to yourself. So thank you for sharing, Nicole, your tip about how to make statements instead of saying you make me angry, saying I feel angry. And I would add the third statement. Instead of saying I feel angry, you can say there is anger here now and I'm with it. But that's a more meditative approach. So you're even withdrawing from a situation of anger and so on, and you're coming back into your center, and you're not identifying that I am feeling anger and this is my story in my life. You're saying, oh, just anger is here and I'm working on it. Yeah, so that's even a more meditative approach. Of course, it's not easy to do when you're with somebody else. Yeah, but using the right language with somebody else makes a big difference. Big difference. So it is important to learn, these techniques and tweak ups, some psychological tweak ups, because they really do help when a time is difficult. Yeah, so you should be prepared for the dark day. If you're not prepared for the challenging day, it's gonna catch you by surprise. Guess what's gonna happen? You're caught. And here you are, acting it all out. You didn't prepare for it. Who is to blame? Yeah, so preparation makes a big difference and learning how to handle it too. Right, so we have a few moments, and if you would like to ask some questions, or you can write them in the chat, feel free to do so. Yes. Gregory.
Yes, good evening. You can tell us about how Mexico was later. I don't know exactly what shadow work is. It's a term I've heard a million times, and energy workers, that's their profession. But could you give an example of maybe a shadow work exercise so I have an idea of what's going on? Thank you.
Yes, I actually just spoke about it because it is simply working on your subconscious, unconscious patterns. Shadow work is just the new age term.
So using the mind to recognize impulses or held energy in the body and then doing something to relax them or heal them, what does one do?
First of all, you bring into your awareness that something is maybe suppressed inside you. You know, let's say a common example is one is cultivating positive thoughts. And then suddenly somewhere at the back of their mind, there is not so positive thoughts. But one would try to suppress them, keep them on the bay and not work with them, just suppress them. So that is unhealthy because they're still there and they're being suppressed. And, and there are associated feelings that one is avoiding to meet in their subconsciousness. Maybe there is some guilt, for example, that has been propagated in their childhood, and that guilt produces some thoughts that are being consciously suppressed, and the new age term is the shadow work. They're negative thoughts, they're suppressed, and there are these ugly feelings inside that you have to work upon. So in my language, it's just subconscious, unconscious feelings, patterns, conditioning, energies, and traumas.
So there's recognition, acceptance, and then
Recognition, acceptance, healing.
and is the healing accomplished by the acceptance?
Yeah, it's a step-by-step approach because first you have to bring it into your awareness. Second step to accept that is here actually, not to deny it. Because if you deny it, you're gonna be tricking it again back to suppression. So if you accept it, if you accept it, you start bringing into the healing space. So you make a healing space. And in the healing space, you use the techniques such as the one that we use today in the meditation to allow it to be here and to heal it, to start working on it in a safe space.
Which means to feel it, right? Feel your feelings.
That's a simplified way, but if you follow through the meditation that we did today,
okay,
you slow down, you ground, you center, you come into a larger space, and that's where you feel it, but you're not in it. And
okay, thank you. I'll listen again tomorrow.
Yes, and that's what creates a healing effect, because if you go in it, then there is a story, a situation, and it's all mixed up mumbo jumbo thing, and you're not healing it actually, you're just in it. Yeah, so the healing happens in a safe space, which is a larger space, which is holding that bubble of emotion or energy. So you're actually taking care of it rather than being in it. Of course, there are many more things, this is just one technique, one example, because there are many more, complex, unconscious patterns and things that come up, or some traumas that can come up, and they need, it's always good to trace them back to the source. But maybe we're gonna cover it next time, because this is gonna be a big topic. Yeah, so tracing back to the source is also very important, and we're gonna talk about that some other time, because this is very important. It's a big topic. All right. Nicole, yeah, your hand.
Hi everyone. Hi Mindo. Um, I guess we're running out of time now. There's no way to do it. But it's funny. Like this had to be the topic because like the whole talk triggered this one really pressing emotion that I have a lot of difficulty with since childhood of feeling listened to, and I couldn't help it, like feeling, there needs to be, in my experience, I've always found voicing it, helps me to even find what it is that I'm feeling, because it comes from a time when I was too young to have any words. So it is by trial and error in a sense that
Yes.
it does. So
Yeah,
I
but
don't
if
know.
if you voice it in a with intention, if you kind of, let's say, if we are in a healing space together, or let's say you meet a friend when you ask for help, or you book a session, that is a right environment to voice, your feelings and your issues. But if you're meeting with your friend for a coffee and then suddenly you just unload them onto it and you say that you don't understand me and this, and it's not your case, of course, but it's how it usually happens. It comes out of nowhere in a unsupported space, and it creates problems. So in this way, it's as you are opening up, by how do I figure this out, and it's good, it's a way of opening it. And yes, sometimes it's very hard to identify what it is, because it comes from such a deep place, from unconscious, subconscious.
Just Mindo, I can't stop.
Yeah, so sometimes it's difficult to identify what it is. Yes, because it comes from somewhere deep, from unconscious, and that's where a bit of more conversation and inquiry would be needed to find what you feel, and it's a whole healing meeting that needs to take place. So yeah, so I would just maybe now, because we can't do it now, is just now, if you just sit with it for a bit, and in this meditative way like we just did now, it's already helping. It's already helping. Maybe we can't resolve it, and figure it all out, but it's still helping. So that's what is good about that. Okay, Adele.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Yeah. I just have something to share that's happening in something to offer that happened in the last few weeks with myself and some people here. That there's this key inquiry question that brings a lot of light from awareness and a lot of freedom when we're doing these loops that we keep doing again and again. The pattern, we're looping again, and the key thing is that the person needs to be tired of doing this loop. They have to be like, oh, I just can't believe I'm doing this loop again and again. And there's a really beautiful question that you keep saying to the person: what is the benefit for you to do this loop? Oh my God, Mindo, we're having huge freedoms with this question. Huge freedoms. Like a friend of mine, she always felt unintelligent. She always had this feeling. She's a very intelligent woman anyway. I mean, you know how many times you can tell a woman that she's intelligent when she has this feeling. So what is the benefit for you to feel this? And when she found it, freedom.
Oh yes. What is the benefit of doing this loop?
This loop. And when you sit with someone, I mean, if you don't mind, Nicole, I can sit with you and try it if you don't mind after in a private chat. I don't mind. I don't know. I knew there's something arising from. Again, I'm just saying the person has to be tired of the loop. Like, I'm going to tell you one of my personal ones was, there was a friend I know here in the island a year, and he was always saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and all these broken promises. And I said to my friend, I'm fed up of his broken promises. Why do I accept his broken promises? You know, and when I found out the benefit, Mindo, it's hilarious. And it's like when I'm sitting in cafes with people and you feel it in I just tell them it's like a truth bomb landing. And you know, because we're there, we can feel it. Like it's so powerful. What is the benefit of this loop? And when you're sitting with someone, you don't entertain the story. Can't you see it now? It's so direct. It's straight from, and you know, the person would say, oh, you know, I remember when I did this loop when I was in school. I went, no, I'm not interested. I just only want you to find the one benefit, and everything in the space changes. It's very powerful. Well, you know, for me, the one broken promises for me was so I, Edel, can live in fantasy. That was my benefit. Do you see it? And I was like, wow, that is why I believe these little bubbles coming at me, these balloons. Oh yeah, we're going on a picnic. Oh yeah, we're going to Amsterdam. They weren't happening, but I'm sitting there accepting them.
Yes.
Unacceptable behavior. Again, how we relate to each other. I'm having great freedoms with people in their relating, in what you're discussing. We can have a chat like now that you're on holiday in Mexico. I can share a little bit more. I wanted to share with you because I was practicing this for myself and for others. What is the benefit for this loop that's coming at you from life, from another behavior, from somebody else coming at you? Like me, it was broken promises.
And of course, you know, this
she's this atmosphere of being unintelligent. What is her benefit? What's the benefit of feeling like you're so unintelligent? When she laughed. They're all laughing. You know, that's a great sign of freedom, isn't it?
It is.
So I wanted to share that with you all. What's the benefit of these loops?
That's a wonderful inquiry indeed. And of course, a person, you know, already should be at a bit more kind of evolved state where they're okay to inquire in themselves. And that's where this technique is brilliant. If you're willing to find out, you know, and to work on it, this technique is just amazing. What is the benefit of feeling this or doing this loop? Yeah, that's
You know, I don't want to sound egotistical. It's maybe because I'm sitting in awareness and they sit with me. And then when they say, because they have to say it, I don't say it. They say it, boom, everything, they feel it. So, okay, yeah, it might be at a certain, they have to be really fed up with the loops. Like,
or even like for someone, let's say, who is a bit more of a beginner, you could ask, what is the benefit of feeling anger, for example? You know, if someone is feeling something like anger, what is the benefit of feeling anger? And you know, so that can be beneficial for you know, more situations, let's put it this way. Yeah.
Mindo, I'm going to give it back to you. No, it's not that. It has to be an actual loop. Like one girl I was sitting with, she always feels second in her relationships. She always feels like she's the one who's to do, the other one is the queen. They're the one who she serves. It has to be something more than a feeling of emotion. Because we're all allowed to feel angry, aren't we?
So it needs to be a repeated situation, you're saying, yes?
Yes, that's what I'm getting this is what I'm putting on the table, if you want to say, for psychological well-being and relating well-being. It literally, they see themselves going out into this loop again and again. And she found it. This girl is on fire. She's on fire. She's huge freedom. She keeps messaging me. I know that question. And we're having a pizza that night, and she was just like, every time she passes by that pizza place, she goes, "That is where I got my freedom from that loop."
Good. Okay, we will put into practice. Yes.
I tell people to go out and but they have homework. It's not just a freedom with me, and then it feels they have to go out and they report back that these loops have softened, that there's not much electricity for this loop to keep going. Or when they are doing the loop, they say, "Oh, I'm doing the loop for this. I'm only doing this loop for me because so I can feel this. I can have this benefit. I can share it with you sometime when you're having some time on the beach there." Anyway, I'll leave it at that, everybody. I'm very excited about my new technique. It's called dynamic self-inquiry, by the way.
Thank you, Adele. And we truly welcome these techniques and suggestions. We truly welcome them. And you know, our intention is to, let's say, to build a library of these techniques, to see where they fit best, in which situations they fit best, and to put them in practice, and to see, you know, that everybody would get a certain toolbox of what they need, you know, to solve the issues, to work on them. And so this one sounds really amazing, and we will definitely put it into some testing and you know, to see all the angles of it. And yes, and we will be creating a whole new YouTube playlist on this topic of you know, working on that, and because it is essential. And yeah, so today I would like to summarize that, you know, a more mature way of being on your journey creates so much more harmony with your friendships, relationships, community, and with your social environment, you know, with people you know and with people you don't know. And you know, having this realization and having this intention that a friendship is more important than principles, that a friendship is more important than righteousness, you know, it puts everything in different perspective, and the ego has less fuel there, because the friendship is more important than you know, fighting about this and that. So having this clear priorities is very you know, very needed as well. And my approach is always to build a friendship, to build a relationship, as much time as I can dedicate to someone. But this is my intention. That's my intention first of all, and therefore, this intention will truly help on your journey, and it will make your journey more beautiful. You're gonna have more friends around you, more people who care about you and you care about them, and at the end of the day, when you get to the point where you want to get to, you also gonna be happier because you got there with friends, and you got there with people that you have built a relationship with, and you have tested the friendship in many ways, and that's what creates a long-term value, and respect, and kindness and caring. So this is my ending message of today. Yes, and challenges are challenges, but friendships are important. And don't worry, we can deal with any challenges. We can all work on the deepest and darkest traumas and all the issues. I've seen it all. I've seen it all. I've probably, you name it, I've seen it or dealt with it, or one way or another way, have come across it, and it's not about that really. It's about growth. It's about friendship and helping each other. So this is important, and everybody has challenges, and some people have bigger challenges. For some people it's a bit less complicated, or some people are very theoretical and mental, some people are very emotional, but whichever way, it doesn't matter. It's you and your journey, and doing it together, and creating friendships is what really matters at the end, along the journey, and especially at the end. Yeah, because you don't want to get to full consciousness, or to higher low C, and then to show up yourself as arrogant achiever. You don't want to do that, because then you're not going to have any friends around you anymore. So what is it for? So making this journey harmonious and beautiful, it's much more appreciated when you get to your goal or your point. Yeah, it's much more appreciated. Yeah, so this is important, and the goal, the journey is as important as the goal. We can summarize it, to that point. The journey is as important as the goal.